Hey everybody, in this video I want to give a quick demonstration of how I think you can be maybe 10 or 100 times more productive than ever before by using AI to code. So I've got a couple of things that I want to be working on, I need to be working on, and in the past you couldn't really multitask, right? The research kind of indicates you're just switching tasks all the time. What you can do now is you can dispatch a task to an AI assistant or an agent, and it can do things for you, and it can be running in the background while you're thinking about or doing something else. And I've found that this has allowed me to basically kick things off and then switch over to something else, and things will keep happening, right? It's a lot like asking a teammate or somebody that works with you to go do something while you work on something else. But in this case, we're talking about an AI assistant. In the past couple of years, if you're using GitHub Copilot or ChatGPT to write your code, you're still looking at the screen, evaluating the code as it's coming in. But now what you can do is sort of beyond that. You still have to do some investigation when you get your stuff back or need to modify things. But I'm going to give a demonstration here. There are two things that I want to work on this morning. One is our landing page for Launchable, and the other is an editing app for videos. We do video production as part of this business, and I'm working on this plugin course right now for building bubble plugins. And editing videos for that course takes quite a long time. It actually takes longer to edit the videos than to record them sometimes, especially for these videos that are like an hour long. So an idea that I've been playing with for a little while is to get Gemini, Google's LLM, to basically help me edit the video down before I start fine-tuning the edit. So basically, if I have 60 minutes of footage and I want to cut it down to, say, 30 or 45 or less, you can cut out a bunch of the empty space and maybe repetitions or mistakes. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to try to build the new Launchable website here on the left, and then build this video editing app on the right, and just see where we get. So I'm going to work on this, and I'll pop in and out of sort of discussing. So you can see at the top of the screen, it's about 10 o'clock, and I'm going to see how quickly I can get both of these things up and running using Replit. And if you've never used Replit before, this is an online coding platform that has done an amazing job of integrating AI coding tools better than any other platform that I've seen yet. So that's what I'm going to be using. And you'll see on the left will be the website, and on the right will be the video editing tool. So let's see how far we can get in about an hour. And I'll just say right here, we're just describing what it is we want. And so starting over here on the right, basically, you're going to just describe to the Replit agent what you want. So we want an AI-powered video editing tool. First function will be to upload a file or get it off of Google Drive. Some of these files are multiple gigabytes, so I like to just store them in Google Drive sometimes, and have it returned parsed down version of the video file. And I have a Colab notebook actually that I've been doing this, and a sort of desktop Python script, and I'm going to paste those both in here to give the agent some more context to figure out what it is I'm doing. So if I bring up that Colab notebook, this is it as a Colab. It doesn't work super well, but basically we're uploading some files to GCP, and we're using the Colab compute to call the Gemini API. I can share this notebook if people are interested in playing with this. We're then transcribing the video using another service called Replicate, which is where you can access hosted ML models, machine learning models. So this is a really handy tool. If you've never used replicate.com, there's tons of different like machine learning models that you can just call an API and get access to. So this is a great site. So in this case, we're using it for transcription. So the incredibly fast Whisper model, it's an OpenAI model. So anyway, that will give us a transcription of the video back, which we will then feed to Gemini to give it like the whole context of what was said in the video before it starts suggesting a cut. And then the basic idea here, I'm calling it a recipe, is like return to us a bunch of timestamps that look like this, sort of hours, minutes, and seconds, so that we can then take the big video and chop it up into smaller pieces. So we would get out something like this, and then we would feed that to another script, which chops up that video file. So what I'm going to try doing is if I just copy, I wonder if I can copy all of this. And if I click Control C and paste it in here, so the first function will be to upload a video file or have it picked from Google Storage. Maybe what we should say is the second function will be to parse down that video file into a shorter, more condensed, concise one. And you might give it some tips like make it professional production grade or something like that. Something like this, polished and professionally edited. So we'll see. We give it this kind of instructions to Gemini as well, probably when we get to that point. But so we'll say use this Colab notebook as an example for the backend cutting function, which will call Google Gemini API for video analysis, or replicate.com API for transcription. And so you could say something like this: use Python and FFmpeg, which is like a command line tool for editing videos, for video cutting and recomposition. Then we paste in all of this. This is the text from the notebook, so that's kind of interesting. It just pulls out the text, which is nice. So that's here. And so I could start there and see what we get. There's a couple of other things I would like. So I would like to have it come up sort of on a canvas on a web page where I can see sort of each scene, where it will have like the first frame of the scene, and then we'll have the text beside it. And maybe those scenes will be stacked vertically, and we can see sort of how much dead space is in between the scenes that they're cutting out. So I could try describing that. But I'm not sure if that's the right way to approach it. If I was going to be building an actual editing tool that I could move the frames around or move the scenes around, maybe that would be the next step. But for now, I just basically want to be able to cut out half of the unnecessary stuff. The goal would be I upload a raw video and I get a finished edited video out, or pretty close to it. So I think I'll just start with these functions for now and see what we get. So we click Start Building. It's going to spin up an environment. You can see it says configuring here. And what's going to happen is it will generate a plan, and then it will present a plan to you, and you can decide to either accept it and proceed, or to modify it in some way or add something to it. So while that's spinning up, the next thing we'll try to do is build our new landing site. So we currently have our landing page built on Bubble. And so yeah, there's the plan. I'll come back to that in a sec, but we can say Launchable.ai. This is our current homepage, and it's gone through a few iterations over the last couple of years. This one I'm not real happy with. It doesn't load super quickly. It's kind of sluggish. To be honest, like Bubble's not the best platform for building landing pages, because it's a web app builder. So if you're doing things with databases and you're doing backend functionality and login and stuff like that, it's phenomenal. But in this case, we just sort of want a fast to load landing page. We want a contact page. We have some blog articles, a services page, courses, and about so forth. So we have some other sub pages. And then we actually have an app attached to this page for our online learning platform. This is Launchpad here, but I'm going to be separating these two things out so that the landing page for the business here is quicker to load and more dynamic, create some nice animations. You can do all kinds of beautiful transitions and things using Replit that would take me too long to do. It's not my expertise. So I'll show you what that looks like. One of the points I want to make with this video is, as long as you can imagine it and describe it, there's a good chance you can create it now with these AI tools. So you don't need to be limited by the sort of difficulty or the perceived difficulty of what some of these gorgeous designs that you see on the web look like. If you can just say, I want nice, smooth transitions, it will create them for you. And so what I'm going to do here in this second app is I'm going to really play with some like visual niceties. Like I'm going to try to get some cool animations. I've got a couple of ideas that I want to play with. And so hopefully we'll get a really sexy, well-polished site that we can use for the when customers find us, that will do a better job of kind of communicating what we do, So anyway, I'll come back to this in just a second. And so here's the plan that we've got for this Replit. Says I've created an AI-powered plan for an AI-powered video editing tool using Flask and JavaScript. The tool will integrate with Google Drive, use Gemini API for analysis, and Replicate API for transcription, following the examples notebook approach. So one thing I would probably change is I wouldn't use Flask. I would use Fast API for my backends typically, if I'm using Python. And so probably that's what I'm going to say here is use Fast API instead of Flask. You could also stick fully with JavaScript if you wanted to say don't use Python for the backend, use Express and Node if you wanted to do that. But I'll say this, and it will come up with an updated plan, and then we'll approve that, and then it will just start to churn out code, which is really cool. And so here's our updated plan, better performance or functionality. And it wants to use Bootstrap for the styling. Again, if you don't know any of these terms or they're not familiar to you, you can just click approve and then adjust things as you go. I know that Bootstrap is a CSS framework for making your sites look nice easily, but I prefer Tailwind. So I'm actually going to say use Tailwind instead of Bootstrap. So use Tailwind CSS instead of Bootstrap. And again, you don't need to do this. This is just a, if you think about these things in two phases, or at least currently I'm thinking about them as having this initial prototype phase where the Replit agent is doing everything basically whole cloth. And from there, you can, that's phase one. And then from there, you can start to tweak it using either the agent or the assistant, which we'll get into, or just manually editing the code. We got Google OpenAI. Okay, so this, so it's still saying Bootstrap here. I'm not really sure why. Let's approve the plan. If we get the first build and we can see that it's using Bootstrap and we don't want it to, you can ask it to rewrite it. And in fact, I've taken a React app and fed it into Replit and asked it to convert it to SvelteKit, which is a different JavaScript framework. And it does an incredible job of doing that in like a minute. And that's a job that would take weeks, at least, you know, in some cases. So it's very cool. Like you can be a lot more experimental, like just throw things against the wall, see what sticks, and worry less about the time it's going to take, right? Like if you've ever worked in a professional software environment, a lot of your time is spent just planning and coordinating because you don't want to waste 2 weeks on a feature using the wrong technology or, you know, building a feature people don't want. But if it takes you 2 minutes to try out an idea, you can be a lot more creative and experimental, right? So anyway, this is, you can see here, it's ticking away. It's building out the files. You click up here on the left, you see the file structure being generated. At any point, we can go into one of these files like main.py. It comes up here. This will be our fast API server, right? This will be running in the background. And I'll get into some other things later, like with hosting. Like you can just deploy this when it's built to Replit hosting, which is an amazing option. But in some cases, you might want to say, you know, I don't want to host it on Replit. I want to use serverless functions on AWS, let's say. So let's convert this fast API to some Lambda functions, and then you know you can pull that off and host it on AWS yourself. Anyway, that's for the next chapter, let's say. So let's come over here. I'm going to take a picture of the site right now, just as a reference. I don't really want to reproduce this design though, so I might not use that. Maybe what I'll do is just start whole cloth. So we'll come over here and say build a modern. So I'm going to describe what I want the site to look like, sort of the animations, fast loading time, so on and so forth. And then I'll start to iterate on the animations and things. So just as an example, I'm trying to think of a few different ideas here to try for the hero section. I'm saying create a 3D animation of elements swirling around and then clicking into place to say Launchable AI. I've never seen that before. I think that would be cool. So let's just see what it comes up with. In the meantime, if we pop over here on the right, we can see that the agent needs your feedback down here. It's paused. So we ran into some bug here. So there's no replicate API token specified at the moment. So the point is when it's trying to call this API endpoint, it's looking for this environmental variable. We haven't defined that yet. So if we come back to agent, it's now got this section for us to include a Google API key and a replicate API token. So there's two different ways you can do this. We can just punch them in here. And if you go to your account, so I'll grab those from the notebook and we'll paste them in there. There's the Google API key. And here's our replicate API key. So it got hung up, we give it some information, and then it keeps going. And so this is basically what the process looks like. It will get so far, and then it will ask, is this okay? Do you want me to change something? I need more information, whatever. So you can kind of think of it as if you had an assistant, like a human assistant that was working for you, and you said, go build me this app. And then they came back after a couple of hours and said, hey, what do you want to use for the styling? Or what do you want to use for login or whatever? Then you could tell them. It's the same in this context, because you will generally, if you're writing a couple of lines or a couple of paragraphs like I am over here, that's not enough to fully specify how to actually build software generally. You just don't think of everything up front. And so Replit does a really, really good job of saying, okay, well, here we need this next piece. So for example, the API keys. And what do you want me to do next? And then here's a really cool thing. I love this about Replit. When it's building your apps, it will take screenshots of the interface or the website, and it will show you as it's building. And so you can see already we've got a way to upload a video file or to browse Google Drive. So I have very large files on Google Drive that I'll test eventually, but for now I'm just going to test with a small test file to see if the whole pipeline is working. So it allows me to select a video file, which is cool. But then I don't actually see any indication on the page of whether it was uploaded or not. So I would say include a progress bar and a toast notification when the video is uploaded. Then once the video is uploaded, allow me to call the API to Gemini and then once the video is uploaded, trigger the editing process. So I'll click that, and then it will start doing stuff again. You can see down here it's thinking. So if you've used ChatGPT 01, this sort of step-by-step chain of thought reasoning, same idea here. As far as I can tell, it's creating a plan which it will either present to you or execute before it does anything, which seems to be, according to the research, a really good way to get better results. Anyway, so we'll come back here. Let's see, what else do we want to add? So now this is going to start. And this has got to the next stage yet. So we got a progress bar. It says, okay, I'll help you create a modern landing page for Launchable with React, 3D animation, or let's say make a light and a dark theme with a toggle in the header. One of the things that we're going to start doing more is blogging, hopefully. So I'll say add a blog functionality. And we'll say add a learn section with links to YouTube videos. And if you come to the current page, we've got this section here with some of our videos, something like that, and a learn page with a similar structure. We're going to need something like a back of the house administration type page later to administer some of this, but upload this or start this process for now. And we'll come over here and test whether this is working. Click upload a file, and I don't see any indication of a progress bar. So one thing you can do is if you click this new tab button, it will bring you to a full page for your demo. I'm going to try here, see if there's a progress bar to indicate what's going on. So I'm going to approve this on the left while I'm trying to figure out why this isn't working on the right. So one thing you can do, I'll point out here, is you've got on the left, you've got assistant and agent. Assistant is blue and agent is purple here in this color scheme. And you can see underneath the agent is 25 cents per checkpoint. And the assistant is 5 cents per edit request. So, it's 5 times the price to use the agent. The difference is if you can give bigger instruction sets to the agent and it will try to come up with a plan, whereas an assistant, you might say something like, you might have just a single thing you want to change. So you might say, show a notification when the file is finished uploading. just so you know if it's in the context of the browser, let's say. Um, and down here, it's telling you what model it's using. So it's nice that it can read across different files. Quite handy. Similar to what Cursor does. It'll show you the changes that it's proposing. So here's the diff on the right. Um, here's the fetch request. It's switching fetch for some reason to I guess to get why they're switching from fetch here. But it may not matter in this context, so I'll just say apply all and see what happens. And so now we've got, we can come back to progress, and we can see over here, there's a screenshot that it looks like it's trying to implement Three.js right here. And there's an error. So it takes a snapshot or screenshot, and down here it says, I noticed there's an error. Let me fix that and improve the animation. So that's amazing, right? A big part of software development is you write some code, you build it or deploy it or whatever, you test it, and you see a bug, you see something is wrong, and then you have to figure out what is going on, make a change, and test it again. And even if you're using something like Cursor or ChatGPT, you have to do that. Oh, this looks nice. Look at this in a second here. But my point is, if that feedback cycle is a closed loop in the agent where it says it tries to run the code, it breaks, it takes a picture which feeds it back into itself and says, here's the error, here's the stack trace, whatever, and then it tries to diagnose and fix the problem, then that whole cycle of like deploy, examine, evaluate, and then code, and then write some new code, that whole thing is looped up into like 30 seconds that the AI handles while you don't have to pay attention. And here we go. Look at this. We've got a 3D rendered scene. We've got some animation looking really good. This is amazing. You're doing this in the background, right? This is not going to be the final product, but we are 27 minutes in. It's now 10:27, and we've got a new landing page with some with learning resources, latest from our blog, and a contact form. Now, this isn't quite right yet. I do quite like this header section, but let's see. Our light dark toggle doesn't work yet. Our contact page comes down to a contact form. That's fine. So this is all on a single page right now. And so from here, we would start to iterate. We would add a favicon over here to the left of the header. We would add some more pages and so on and so forth. But the point I'm trying to make with this video is like you can be so much more productive if you're sort of dispatching tasks and letting them run than if you have to use all of your cycles to concentrate for each step along the way. So I think this stuff is going to open up a huge amount of opportunity for people to build tools. This case of this video editing tool, I have looked around there's an AI for that, for example, on this website. If you've never heard of this website, it's great. There's an AI for that.com. It allows you to find AI tools and services for all kinds of different applications. And if I've looked through here, there's something like 50 some different video editing tools. We can look at here and see. I think it said 60 now. So here's a bunch. Verified tools, right? There's a whole bunch, and I've looked through here, but nothing is quite doing, 60 tasks. Nothing is quite doing exactly what I would like it to do. And so you can either take the approach of, I'm going to look for the right tool, or I'm going to spend some time looking for the right tool. And maybe you try out a bunch, right? It would take me a day or two to try out all these different tools. If I pared it down to 5 or 10 that I thought were a good fit for what I was trying to do. It might take me a day or two to get my credit card out, sign up for these services, really get to know the interface and the workflow and so on. And number one, it might be more expensive than is required, right? If it's a complicated suite of tools for $30 or $99 a month and you only need it to do one thing once a month, it's not the right fit. And number two, you don't have control, right? In some cases you might get exactly what you want, but most of the time, people are building apps that try to serve a general user base. And if you have this really niche use case, you're not going to find it typically in one of these platforms. So if you become comfortable writing your own tools and realize that like the curve to getting these tools working is so much lower now, it probably will be both faster, cheaper, and lead to better results if you get exactly what you want by building it yourself. Now, of course, this it's not quite that simple. In some cases, if you're talking about complicated tools and if you've never done any technical work, you might overestimate kind of how fast you can move. But learn a little bit about deployments and how web apps are built and things, and you can do an enormous amount extremely quickly. So anyway, that's it. I hope this was inspiring and helpful. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks.